300,000 teachers quit last year. Here's their anonymous confessions. Teachers are quitting. More and more teachers are quitting. But why? Check it out.
300,000 teachers quit last year. I got their anonymous confessions. What they revealed will shock you. Here's the teacher confessions.
Will it though?
Spend 6 hours on paperwork and 2 hours actually teaching. I'm not allowed to fail students who haven't learned anything. The curriculum is designed by people who have never actually taught. I'd homeschool my own kids if I could afford to quit. We were babysitters with degrees, not educators. Parents know their kids better than I ever will. The system isn't broken, but speaking up means losing my job. Even the people inside the system know it's failing your children. Comment broken if you've heard teachers complain about the system that they work in.
I mean, none of that was shocking. Let's be very honest here. All predictable, down to the babysitting we've heard, and as we can expect, have seen with our own eyes. And also the whole idea that they have to pass kids regardless of how they perform. Listen, I wasn't some star student coming up, but I knew one thing. I knew if I acted up beyond what's reasonable for, child to be a child in class, then my dad would whoop my ass. That's just the truth. Am I saying that more parents need to consider not sparing the rod a little bit? But I also think that this all is a result of coddling a generation of people who are too concerned about feelings, offending people, offending children, this very liberal mindset that's taken over the nation and is just now getting dealt with. Oh, yes. And that also includes no fathers and us not celebrating the importance of fathers. That's definitely felt in these classrooms.
Something is in the water because the behavior is not changing. Something is in the water because the behavior is not changing. When I first started teaching 7 years ago before COVID, I could threaten to call home and they would stop. I could call home and they would stop. This year, baby, I'm calling home. I'm changing seats. I'm giving warnings. I'm writing them up. And it's just like they come back and they do it again. And then the attitude on them. Why do I have to ask you who you're talking to? Why do you not know who you're talking to? And then they always want to be like, oh, this teacher's mean. That teacher's mean. Are they? Are they mean? Are they really? Or you just don't understand boundaries. Okay, because this is not a playground. Who are you?
Question. Are you a firm believer that for most children, especially today, they just know that they can't get touched, really? Especially if you don't have someone who's like a strong disciplinarian in your household, especially your father. If they don't know they can't get touched in any way, what real punishment can you exert over them when they know that there's no real disciplinarian in the household? Let's go back to this video. Let's check out a few comments. I forgot to do that on this video. Top comment here reads, and it really comes down to one thing: forced inclusion for children who shouldn't be in general ed. Another person who says, broken, the system is an abuse model, and many of us have Stockholm syndrome. Somebody else who says, best comment, educational decisions are made by those who have never been in the classroom. I can see that. Just like we have people who believe they know what's right for children who don't plan to have children, right? And families. Here's somebody else who says, I'm starting to believe this widespread change in school children's behavior is the early signs of a cultural collapse. Of course it is. Of course it is. Somebody else who says, I'm a school-based therapist. I've been in this field 20 years. I've never seen anything like this. Stay strong. Take care of yourself. Somebody else who says, kids don't respect adults anymore. They talk back to their parents and us too. And there are no consequences. Yeah, there were consequences for me. There were consequences for me. And maybe we need to reconsider some things, is all I'm saying. But no, that's not right. Okay. Enjoy the situation you're in right now. Let's talk about the sponsor of this channel, fathershaverights.com. Engaged and soon to be married men, a single prenup slip up can cost you tens of thousands later. Waiting until the last minute or signing under pressure are the mistakes that sink most agreements. My step-by-step guide at fathershaverights.com, built with expert attorneys James Sexton and the lead attorney, shows you exactly how to avoid every costly prenup mistake, all for the price of a couple of dinner dates. Tap the link pinned to the top of the comment section to safeguard your future and join the hundreds of soon-to-be husbands protecting their marriages the right way. Now, I also do know there was a no child left behind policy, and that negatively affected schools. Let me talk to our AI assistant, Bristol, Ms. Coffee here. Ms. Coffee, how did the no child left behind policy in education help, but also what I want to know, because this is what we're focused on in this conversation, negatively affect children and students in specific?
You're talking about what actually happened under No Child Left Behind, NCLB, that practice where kids got passed to the next grade even when they weren't ready. Social promotion, basically. Let's break this down clearly. No political fluff, just what went down and why. What No Child Left Behind intended. The original idea, 2002, was to make schools more accountable.
Right.
If students weren't meeting grade-level standards, schools would have to improve teaching, support struggling kids, and close learning gaps. In theory, that sounds great, right?
Right.
No child left behind was supposed to mean no child gets forgotten academically. What happened in reality? Schools were under huge pressure to show rising test scores every single year. That meant if too many kids failed or didn't meet benchmarks, the school could lose funding, teachers could lose jobs, and the district could get labeled as failing. So what did a lot of schools start doing? They pushed kids through, even if they weren't ready, to make the numbers look better on paper. It became no child held back, not no child left behind. Some teachers called it passing to protect the school. How that hurt kids. Students advanced without mastering basics. Kids were moved up to higher grades before they could even read or do math at grade level, which made the next grade even harder. Short-term numbers, long-term damage. Test scores might have looked good one year, but by middle or high school, many students were so far behind they just gave up or dropped out. Teachers' hands were tied. Even when educators wanted to hold kids back or give them remedial help, the system punished them for low scores. So they were forced to teach to the test and move them along. Kids learned to game the system. Some students realized they could fail and still pass, which killed accountability and motivation to learn. Bottom line, No Child Left Behind was supposed to fix failing schools, but it ended up creating a culture where failure was hidden instead of fixed. Schools became factories for test results, not learning. And that's why people say, it didn't leave kids behind, it just pushed them forward unprepared.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Teachers are quitting mid-year again, at record numbers, is one of the reasons why. A student who wasn't assigned to me or my classroom was let into my room by another adult, a teacher's aide, and repeatedly ignored my direction and instructions to leave. Eventually, she repeatedly called me and threatened me with physical violence, which sent me into a panic attack. I called the office for support, and as soon as the dean of students showed up to my classroom, I left and I went to the stairwell to go cry and have a panic attack. Once I calmed down, which took my entire lunch, I was expected to go back and teach my classes because we had a sub shortage and nobody could cover my classes for the rest of the day. By the end of the day, the videos that the student took of me circulated amongst the student body, and I ended that day sitting at my desk feeling the most powerless and defeated that I've ever felt in my entire life.
They're out here bullying teachers. You know, there was a time when if you talk disrespectfully, then you know you're going to get held accountable, even if maybe the teacher might have slightly been in the wrong, or maybe might have been having a bad day that day. It didn't give you a free-for-all to start calling them names and cursing them out. There was a time when that was shamed, right? And then society became more liberal.
The student was not given a consequence that was fitting. She was sent home for the day. That was it. I received no apology, no restorative circle from the student or the adult who let them into my classroom, and the paraprofessional received no disciplinary actions.
That's crazy.
He stood in my classroom and allowed his student to speak to me in a degrading, violent, and disrespectful manner. After that class period was over, I had several students come up to me and say that they wanted to jump to my defense, but they were also afraid of that student and afraid of for their own safety. That's when I knew the profession I once loved was no longer the profession I needed or wanted, and I left a month later. And that story is not unique. Teachers aren't leaving because they don't care about the kids. They're leaving because the system no longer lets them teach kids. They're not allowed to teach self-management. They're not allowed to teach respect or accountability anymore. We are told to keep the peace, keep the bodies in the room. Some are even told to pass at 20%. Just get the kid the diploma.
Wow. And they're afraid. They're afraid of the students. You see, this is why other countries, and I'm not saying this should come back. I really am not. But this is why other countries have mob justice. A lot of people don't know this. But In other countries, you do something bad, you steal something, the community can come attack you. Some people die. I'm not asking for this or calling for this, but there's a sense of accountability amongst people to a very fearful degree. That, of course, is too far. But I do think that students who know that if they get violent with teachers, because this is what this is, when you're afraid of a student, there's a threat of violence there. I do think those students knowing that teachers cannot defend themselves, and if they do, they'll be looked at as the monster, does not help.
Pass them along so that the data looks good. But when we do that, we're not protecting the students. We're doing them a disservice because they are walking into a world that will hold them accountable. We could have taught them how to handle that with grace, empathy, and reflection, but instead we're told to look the other way. Teachers quitting mid-year every single year is not an exodus. It's self-preservation. And deep down, it's heartbreak because they want to stay. The system is just making it so that staying is at the expense of yourself and your own family.
In education, we sacrifice the many for the one. Seems kind of backwards because usually everywhere else in society, it's the other way around. We sacrifice the one for the many. And obviously, I don't actually mean sacrifice. What I mean is we allow one student who cannot handle being in a classroom, and we allow them to disrupt the learning of all the other students. We allow them to physically assault their peers, physically assault their teachers. We allow them to destroy classrooms, and we just continue to allow it and allow it and allow it while all the other students suffer. Why do we do that? Because this is not how it always used to be. Used to, if you could not handle being in a school, you got sent to an alternative school, where if you were going to disrupt the learning, you were going to disrupt the learning from other disruptors. But for whatever reason, in the last, I don't even know how many years, we've started sacrificing the many for the one and allowing one child to take away from every other child's learning. Now, I want to mention, this does not mean I'm not sympathetic to that one child. It breaks my heart when there is a child who has a traumatic background or some other underlying issues that prevents them from being able to operate in the classroom. But at the end of the day, when do we draw the line? When do we say enough is enough? When do we find a system that works better for everyone? Because clearly what we're doing now is not working.
Hey guys, as always, I appreciate you checking out yet another episode of the Coffee Pod. To my currently engaged or soon to be married men, if you need a prenup and would like a guide that shows you how to get a solid and legally binding prenuptial agreement, hit the link into the top of the comment section and access your guide at fathershaverights.com today.